Hello and welcome to a new virtual visit with the Museum of Brene. Today, we're inside of the Brene Abbey, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it was like to live in an abbey and in the abbey grounds. So, first of all, let's talk about the people who lived here. Now, when you talk about religious orders, you can talk about nuns or monks, which are just people who've decided to take themselves out of everyday life and get closer to God. And so the people who lived here in this particular abbey were monks. So an abbey is a place where monks and nuns lived. And the reason that this is called an abbey and not a monastery is because at the head of the monks was the abbot, which means that it's not a monastery anymore. It's not just a monastery, it becomes an abbey. And so these monks were Benedictine monks who lived here during the Middle Ages about 1,000 years ago. And they lived according to a very strict set of rules. These were called the rules of Benedict. And there were a lot of different rules, but basically the major rules that they had to live by were a vow of silence, and so they couldn't talk very much during the day, and they were also supposed to spend most of their day in prayer. Of course, because they were still human, they still had to garden, farm, take care of livestock, and take care of the grounds of the abbey. So we talked about how this abbey was established about 1,000 years ago. And the woman who established this abbey, her name was Judith of Brittany. And she married Richard II, Duke of Normandy, around the year 1000. And then shortly after that, started planning this very abbey. The Brene Abbey is the only standing Roman abbey left in Normandy. Over the last 1,000 years, it has, of course, undergone many transformations. There are different periods of architectural style represented all over the church. In it, you can see examples of Roman architecture, classical architecture, and Gothic architecture, among others. The Abbey of Brene is no longer considered a sacred space, and so is actually just considered a cultural space now. Here we are in front of what is now the Brene Museum. But back in the day, it used to be where the abbot lived. So that's the head monk. He used to live right behind me. And over here are what are now government and administrative buildings. But they used to be the refectory, where the monks would gather to eat their meals and be read to at the same time by another monk. But a really important part of the abbey was the surrounding grounds. And this included everything from fruit orchards to vegetable gardens to areas to feed the livestock. Over here, we have a little bit of what remains, and it's in what's called the style of a simple garden. These gardens were areas where medicinal herbs and medicines were grown to be used by the monks to heal themselves. In case they ever got sick, they would go in, get some herbs, and make their own medicine. And so it was actually a really massive area. Here we are in front of the abbey, which is right behind me, the house of the abbot, and I just wanted to say see you next week.